Welcome to the Curious Conversation Collaborative, a community for purpose-seeking entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers.
Listen to inspiring conversations with your hosts, inner leadership mentor Tessa van Keeken and business wealth coach Karen Revell.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the second part of our live Q&A with business owners and entrepreneurs from around the globe. This Q&A where we talk about doing business in challenging times, and in this second part we will be talking about the pivoting of our businesses, of the priorities and connection.
How are you coping in your business right now?
First of all, this is what I have a little definition which I have concluded of COVID, COVID, crafting opportunity vigilantly in difficulties, right? And
how have you been pivoting your business or changed your business? I mean, Phyllis, you mentioned you've switched a bit more to the more of the online, the training and the mentoring side of your business, as you can't do so much of the hands-on treatments.
Yeah. And I think what we're also particularly curious about hearing is in, like, obviously which you pivoted in a way, what you said, like, because of need, but also where you then moved into that it became maybe a choice, if you know what I mean, the difference between being pushed into and choosing to.
So initially, probably about two years ago, 18 months, I had already been working on creating a membership to do the supervision and mentoring of therapists, and particularly osteopaths, because that's something that I've been doing for many years. But I decided I was going to move that into the online space. So I've been working on that. I've been doing a little bit less teaching at university in order to try and work on that. And I was incorporating a lot more of, because I've been student support for 13 years before that. So I was incorporating a lot more of my mentoring and the NLP type coaching things into that, and was doing that online. But I was just beginning to do that. I did a lot of coaching. I would do some coaching online, and I had been occasionally doing that for patients. But what it meant with this was now, because I can't do any hands-on, it's looking on the telehealth side of things, which has been growing anyway within the health side. You've got a lot more GPs, private GPs, I would admit, but they're doing the telehealth side of things. There are physios who are doing telehealth. There are some osteopaths who are doing it. As I said, I was doing the odd bit, but that wasn't the route that I was intending to go down fully. So my intention was that would come in a bit later on, but my hand was forced. So now I have been offering those online consultations to patients. And so I've been doing a few of those. But what I've also been doing with it, so that's been not a hard transition, but it has definitely been a transition and a pivot for me. But what I've also done with that now, and I'm going to be doing this again on Saturday, I've done a couple of talks on one of my free groups on how to deliver online consultation. So it's another side that's now coming into this mentoring side. So I suppose what it's done for me is there has been that change, but what it's made me realise is that niche that I was creating online anyway is a real need, and I'm just doing more of that. But certainly from the point of view of dealing with patients, I'm recognising the benefits of it, and that although my big love is treating my patients and hands-on stuff, recognising that there is a hell of a lot that we do as clinicians that doesn't necessarily require you putting your hands on there, and having had the feedback from patients that it's made a difference, and that this has been a bit easier now as a result, and doing the follow-ups from that, I've recognised that something that I knew anyway, but this has validated it a little bit more.
Yeah. And it looks like you're, I think, you know, the health industry generally, as with others, maybe like education and other areas, is I think people will see from this time that things won't necessarily go back to the way they were before. People have seen that there are different ways of doing things. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, I don't see how after this everyone's going to go back to exactly what they were doing before. It has shown new opportunities and new ways of working for a lot of people.
Totally, and it's I suppose, because obviously, Karen, I've known you a bit of a while now, and you know I was trying to complete my master's, which I have done.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. I had, when I embarked on that, a lot of that was sort of like doing modules where you would go to the university, but there was also some online elements of it. So really and truly, for the last 6 years probably, I have done so much more online and had got used to that. So when everybody was saying about Zoom calls and whatever, it was like, oh, that's nothing new. You know, that's been my life. I've been used to doing that. You know, as I said, I worked in local government for 35 years, but the last 20 years of that was part-time. And some of the time we were gradually introducing more online work in there. They weren't doing it brilliantly, I will admit, but they were introducing it. So it's been, exactly as you say, a way that the world has been creeping on a little, you know, a bit more slowly. COVID has meant it's had to have a massive switch round. That, in fact, actually, if you look at how people were previously with internet connections and things like that, considering the fact that probably, you know, 80% of the world is now having to do all this, it's actually coping pretty well.
Yeah.
That we're, you know, we're on this call at the moment, you know, but I think exactly as you said beforehand about the artisan side of things, we're almost going back to what we were 100 years ago. All right, admittedly with the technology in there, but from the point of view that we're connected. I was really aware, and I'm sorry, stop me if I'm going off at a tangent here.
No, go ahead.
Really aware that although my family, we're all really close, but we don't talk that often. You think you do, but you don't. Whereas since this has happened, we have a weekly Zoom call that I've set up that we all talk. My parents haven't got the internet, but what it's meant that I've done is because they're in lockdown, my dad's 92 and my mum's in her 80s. So they've been in lockdown for we're going into, I think, about week 8. I've made sure that we've kept them down. But what we do is we'll have a Zoom call and then we'll phone my mum at the same time so she can hear us even though she can't see us. And it's just stuff like that we realise that, yeah, we would have got together at Easter, we would have got together at this time, but we don't all get together normally. That has made a difference the way families were, and you get in contact with your friends a bit more often. That, you know, you always, I love my friends, I love having them, I have a really close knit, but then you suddenly think, my gosh, I haven't seen them for 6 months. And this has meant that we have been trying to keep in touch, and so that's the positive side. So whenever I'm feeling really down and miserable about it, those are some of the things that I look at that are the positive sides of it.
Yeah, and Phyllis, I can really resonate with that because my family, we probably only get, it's not that we're not close, but we probably only get together once a year. And my brother's in lockdown in Spain, which is like very harsh at the moment because they can't go out at all unless it's, you know, literally to the supermarket and back. And likewise, we get on a Zoom call once a week now, and the whole family together. And like for my mum and dad, that's a really good thing. Yeah, so it's kind of like, whereas before you felt you had to be physically connected, and we've talked about that, Tessa and I, you know, I don't really like this term of social distancing because we don't have to be socially distancing, it's physically distancing that's what's really happening. And I think actually, yeah, it has in lots of ways brought the world closer together, and a lot more community and compassion that's going on around the world right now. So that's great. Yeah.
I definitely think from what you're saying, Phyllis, that there's more, there's more purpose and more awareness around the interactions we're doing. Like, you know, in a way that what you mentioned around families coming together, that sometimes everyone might be in the same room, but no one might be actually connecting necessarily. Whereas now you have to be purposeful, you have to be aware of with your interactions and with your connections. Sorry, Michelle, you were going to say something, so go ahead.
Yeah, not to worry. I've got constructions in the neighbor's garden, so I hope that doesn't interfere too much. I can totally relate. My family's all over the world: Australia, New Zealand, England, South Africa. South Africa aren't allowed out the house either, other than to the shop. For us, it's also a weekly Zoom call, and I'm just totally grateful for Wi-Fi and data and modern technology. And I'm grateful that my 80-year-old mother is tech savvy and can get onto the Zoom call and things like that. That's just making it connection so much easier and better for all of us. And then for as far as pivoting your business, for me, I wasn't able to pivot my business, but I first had to accept that I had to homeschool, and I had to plan my life differently, and I had to allow the space for my son. But the other side of it is that I really wanted to be able to be available for people that were really struggling. And so I had to try create the combination. And so for me, it was really about changing my goal setting and about scheduling so that I can do both. And that's really where I had to put my focus.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting to recognise that, Michelle, and like you say, you know, so for some people, they are finding that they can't actually pivot their business right now for whatever reason, and like you say, other priorities are coming in. So if you've got children, you know, they're at home with you, you've got to do, you know, you've got to homeschool them, and it is much more of a juggling act than it was before. So yeah, and again, as Tessa has said, like recognizing that and just allowing that to be, rather than trying to push through. And I've said this a couple of times. I think, you know, what this situation is doing for a lot of us is just making us take that step back, have that pause in our life, and thinking, you know, what am I doing right now? Spending my time and attention, and, you know, and even thinking about, is this where I want to go in the future? You know, and it's forcing us all to reflect in that way. So yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, and I think and that relates again to what Phyllis was saying as well, you know, that this goes for both your business and your personal life, that nearly everything you're being forced to being more aware, more purposeful, and making choices more consciously, to actually really reflect and say, okay, like, you know, again, you know, it's easy to just, you know, have a quick phone call or a quick visit or whatever, but there's now, because also there's so much going on, so you need to make choices. So suddenly you're much more purposeful in going like, hey, and you're actually bringing something, you know. It's much harder to, as you said, like when you're meeting through Zoom or anything else, it's much harder to just sit there and not actually be there. I mean, it's possible, you can turn your video off, but then, you know, like, but in principle, when you come on, you're there. You know, so I think, and again, and also what you were just saying now, Karen, around these choices, to reflect, to see, is this actually the path I want to do? You know, is this, like, where do I need to make changes? Like, am I still, like, you know, what Phyllis was saying around, on the one hand, not being able to do what you really love, but then also to need to look, okay, then what else is there and what do I actually want to do? And like, you know, you clearly, you created great projects there. With the mentoring and helping other people. But I think that's really, for me, it really means like some people like this pushing through what you just mentioned. Just the other day, there was this post saying like, oh yeah, you just need to push through until you're there. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, I mean, yes, there is part of it. Like it's more about recognizing when you need to give yourself that kick under the butt to actually go for it and just keep doing it and get there. But also to actually really reflect and think, hey, is this actually the right path? do I actually need to push through, or do I actually need to stop and say, no, I just kept going that way, but I need to actually stop and go a different way.
Yeah.
Yes, I can totally relate to that, because I'm somebody that's particularly hard on myself and set myself to a higher standard always, and having to stop and realize that what I had set myself to achieve in this time was not attainable, and I was setting myself up for failure. That was an important point to recognize and to stand still at, because I would not have achieved anything continuing along that path, and then I needed to readdress it and change it to make it possible.
Yeah, and I really recognise that, Michelle. I found that I think people who are high achievers or perfectionists or both, you know, we are used to having bigger goals and striving and working hard to achieve them. And like, what's been a real game changer for myself is just literally week by week saying, what am I prepared to do? What am I committing to do just this week? And just giving myself permission to have those baby steps rather than this massive big goal, which we, you know, often do. And then, like you say, we'll beat ourselves up if we're not on track or not achieving where we want to be, as opposed to right now just saying, okay, what am I willing to do this week? You know, and just setting yourself very small targets, and just, you know, just even if it's just allowing yourself to say, yeah, by the end of this week I want to get 3 things done or whatever, you know. And it's like, or even one thing, it doesn't matter, you know, but it's just saying, we don't know how long this is going on for, we don't know when we're coming out of this, so let's just be present with it and just still keep moving forward. But we don't have to have these massive goals that many of us are striving for. And I really think, and I've spoken to a few people about this, that, you know, we talk a lot about, some of us talk a lot about masculine and feminine energy. And I really feel this is a rebalancing going on right now, that many of us have been in that striving, pushing, very dominant masculine energy. And this is not about male against female. This is the energies within all of us. And I think Mother, the feminine Mother Earth, is asking us to rebalance right now, and is forcing us to take that step back and actually, you know, try and rebalance these energies within each of us and then globally on the planet. So yeah, that's a really interesting observation. Yes.
So for me, I think there's a couple of things going on in this conversation, and also being hard on yourself, or trying to grow your business, or whatever the case may be, and following your own advice. For me, it's really about keeping a success journal. So every night at the moment when I go to bed, I write down 5 things that I did well, and that can be as simple as taking 5 minutes out to enjoy my cup of tea, or giving my son their needed attention, or spending time on social media that I had planned to do, or whatever, no matter how small or how big, to write down those things, just to make sure that I keep in a positive frame of mind, and not just spending the whole day punishing myself.
Yeah, I really love that. That's really great. I think that's very helpful for a lot of people, because, and I think especially what you said, because I think sometimes people, when you mention the word journal, they think, oh God, I need to write pages of stuff. Whereas that you say, like, it can also just be one simple thing. It doesn't have to be something big. It can be one sentence. It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, that's a lovely thing. I must admit, I've been doing that. I've been one of those who's always been a bit, not exactly resistant, but find it difficult to journal. More because of the fact that immediately you say that word, I do think, oh my gosh, it's got to be loads of stuff that you go on for. And I had found that certainly writing down things that I'd achieved, I'm a great list writer. I've always been a list writer since I was very young. So I found writing down things that I had to do and almost ticking them off, or writing them at the end of the day saying, done that, done that, done that. So, and I hadn't thought of using the word success journal, but I'm going to now coin that. Thank you, Michelle. Because it certainly resonates that that's what it is that you're doing. And it does make you feel so much better when you look at it and just, I've achieved that, I've done that. And it doesn't matter how small it is.
Yeah. And I think it's great what you're saying for the people that are list writers, like, you know, if they feel more comfortable, call it a success list. That's okay too. Call it what works for you, what your brain tracks.
Yeah, and Phyllis, while you're there, do you have any tips or observations that you'd like to make?
Yeah, you know, thinking about anchors. Now I know it's sort of like anchor, anything, talismans, whatever you want to say. I had, just before I came on here, I was doing a talk and I was talking about motivational anchors, and I brought down my, I'm going to show you now, my Buddha that is on my dressing table. Sorry, here we are. I normally have this Buddha in my bedroom on my dressing table, and all of my positivity is focused into that. I really do think about all of those things that I want to achieve, that I'm striving for, that I'm seeing as successful, whatever they are. It might be simple as I managed to get up this morning, that's successful. So all of that, I'm focusing on something that I look at, and for me it's my Buddha, that I look at that and that makes me feel good, and I realise that actually at the end of the day I've got all those things that are there, and I think it's good to have something that you can anchor to, because we are going through this very turbulent time.
Yeah, and I think it is very helpful for people to realize that, like, again, for some people that it might be useful to use something physical, something that you can either hold or look at, or you know, some people can do it with their mind, but for other people it's very useful to have something that you can, as I said, see or touch or hold on to, literally. It's very useful for people to get all these different perspectives and different tips, but also to hear about the challenges, because I think there's a real power in hearing that you're not the only one. People can tell you, you know it, but it's from hearing people's stories, from actually people being open and vulnerable about what they're struggling with, and then also, like, obviously what tools or what actions or whatever it is that has helped you get to the other side, if you like. But I do think there's a real value in that. I think, again, you can hear it, you can read all the quotes that say it, but in the end it's by hearing people's stories that you really can feel a bit kinder to yourself, that you can actually go, oh yeah, that's home front for me too, and there is a way of and accepting. I mean, we know we had this in one of our talks, this bit of also accepting help, because I think all of you and all of us, we've talked, Karen and I have talked about our issues in a previous episode, that it is this thing about that, mentioned a few times, the preaching what you, practice what you preach, but also that little bit, don't feel you have to do it on your own. And actually only the other day, Michelle in one of the groups in her groups on Facebook posted something around that, and I even said it as well, that I realized for myself that one of the most difficult things sometimes is the asking, but especially the accepting help. And I think that is something we can all learn from, that it's a real strength, actually. It's not a weakness to ask or accept help, to really actually allow yourself to not have to do it all on your own as well. And I think for me, even a talk like this, like coming together and talking about that, that's a form of support as well, that we're both giving but also receiving. So thank you so much for that as well.
Yeah, for me, as a last thought, I just wanted to say this is another example of just saying that we are not alone. We are not alone. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're all connected and interconnected as well, even if we're not meeting up physically now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it a little bit. I think, well, I know I did. I'm pretty sure, Karen, you did as well. It's been really, it's been interesting to have a conversation like this. For those who are here today, again, thank you so much for being here, and look forward to keep connected.
Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode? Do share your thoughts and questions in the comments or send us a message.
Do you know of someone else who'd be interested in our curious conversations? Please share and spread the word. You can find out more about us at KarenRevell.com
and TessaVanKeeken.com. Tune in next week for another curious conversation.